So yeah, we'll start the Q&A section now. Let me swap over so everyone can see that QR code to submit questions once we wrap up the pre-planned questions. Okay. So Matt, to start, when someone asks you, what do you do? What is your answer?
And this is not a joke. This is real. This is a real answer. I tell them first and foremost, I try my best to be a father. And that's true. For me, family is comes first, and then what I do for a living. What I do for a living is try to be the most disruptive scientist I can be. And by disruptive, I mean approach problems and research questions in an as unique way as possible.
Could you elaborate a little bit on as unique as possible? Maybe give us an example of some of your disruptive nature, Matt?
Yeah, yep. Good thing my wife isn't here, and even better, it's a good thing that my mom isn't here. Because I've been that way since I was born. Um, what I mean by that is that when in industry at least, and I assume it's the same in academia after watching how Dave thinks. Um, by thinking the same way as everyone else, you can achieve the same thing as everyone else. You can achieve expected answers, but for most of us as scientists, expected answers are not exciting or rewarding. So what I mean by being disruptive is think hard, challenge, challenge, challenge every conclusion you see and every pattern of thinking, because it's through that way of thinking that it's most likely that in industry we can come up with something new. In academia, um, people like Dave can make um, discoveries that are unexpected, unique and unexpected being the most valuable for mankind.
And this may segue into the next question I have for you. I mean, it sounds like so much of your objective is innovation to truly be impactful in the space that you operate in. So, I mean, based going off of that, would you share your best insights into finding meaning into your career, which is I'm assuming, a pretty significant part of why we're all in Tally Ford today together. So I'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah, I can use a story with my oldest child who is now very successful in the arena that he chose, which is being a high level chef. Um, he was a difficult student in high school. He was a little bit too good for his own good, a little bit too smart and clever for his own good. Didn't learn well in high school, so he didn't do well in college. If you can imagine, then he's sitting at the table with us, just going, "What am I going to do? How am I going to earn a living? How am I going to support a family?" I don't really like any of the things that I'm learning in school. And I gave him the same advice I would give you. I think it's crucial, and that is you need to find what you're passionate about because a good career is long. 30 to 35 years is a long time. That's a long time to work in something that you don't have passion and energy for. And it was funny because he goes, "Well, how do I know what I'm passionate about?" And what I told him was pay attention to what you're doing in everyday life as you go about your day and take note when you feel happy. Take note when you feel like you're doing something that you're really good at. And it was shortly after that he said, "I'm going to cook you guys dinner." I looked at him and said, dude, the only thing I've ever seen you make is a hot dog. How are you going to make us dinner? Oh, well, while you're at work, I've been watching um shows on TV, and that makes me really happy. Okay, make us dinner. And I remember sitting down and starting to eat that dinner and looking at my wife going, what the heck is happening? This is one of the best meals I've ever had. How is this even happening? And within a year, he was cooking meals for neighbors, and now he's a highly successful chef. It's all about that passion, energy, and happiness.
So what you're saying too, to some extent, is that finding passion, you have to go out and attempt to find it, but it also seemingly can stumble upon you. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think there are two components to that. One, you have to try stuff, expose yourself to new things, and not be hesitant to do that or worried about doing that. But then you have to be receptive and notice and respect when you have those feelings of energy and feelings like, oh my gosh, I'm actually really good at this. You have to be receptive to those feelings. Doesn't
Uh,
make matter if you're going to make money. If you're really good at something, the money will come.
I guess then again, another nice way to segue from, you know, actually doing the thing that you hopefully find passion for um, during your undergraduate degree. What did you envision yourself doing? And if you would also answer that question, but pertaining to your graduate degree. And I want to just, to everybody in the room, when Matt and I didn't discuss the answers that he would give, but Matt really lit up at this question. So I'm actually very, very, very curious to what your answer is going to be.
Yeah, so if I think back to my undergraduate degree, as I mentioned in the opening, I was interested in biology and animals from when I was a tiny little kid. Um, I didn't know what passion or energy was then. I just knew that I was really interested, and I was fortunate to have parents who really supported that interest and gave me opportunities. By the time I was undergrad, there was no question about what I was going to go into, and that was science, and in this case, biology. I think in one regard, I was very lucky in that I was single-minded in that way. I was going to do biology. But if you asked me as an undergrad, what are you going to do with that? I would have honestly looked at you and said, I don't know. And I think that's normal, and that's part of the journey, and should not um, be a problem for you, because as long as you try things and expose yourself and are not embarrassed by failure, because failure is going to eventually lead you to success. Um, another in I I had another interesting juncture in graduate school because as an undergrad I took a course in physiology, and I loved physiology, absolutely loved it. So then went to grad school and got my master's degree in human physiology, and then began a PhD program. So this will tell you, um, I didn't have all the answers. In fact, I pretty much had none of the answers. I started a PhD program in human physiology and fell in love with cardiac physiology. Absolutely loved it. Found it fascinating. But the lab in the physiology department at University of Illinois had no openings. So then the program wanted me to study with a very solid investigator, PI, red blood cell membrane, biophysics, and that was ion transients. And I did a lot of soul searching, and I went to that guy and said, I'm just not interested in this. What should I do? Well, let's get you talking to other professors who might have openings. Well, there was an opening in a neurophysiology lab that studied water striders. If anybody knows what that's, an insect that goes around on top of the water, and they were mapping neural networks. Man, that, no offense, but that is so far from people. I can't get excited by that. So one of my buddies said, hey, why don't you take a nutrition class? Nutrition? Never thought about it. So I went to Dr. Willis, the guy who did our red blood cell ion fluxes. And he goes, yeah, I don't have a problem with that. Why don't you try it? So I signed up for that class, loved it. And the teacher ended up being my PhD mentor. And here we are today. I ended up getting PhD in nutrition, and really fell in love with the application, the direct application in people. But even then, I would have told you, if someone asked me, well, what are you going to do with your PhD in nutrition? Like, I don't know. I know I don't want to do academia, and we can get into that, why I knew that later. But I don't really know what's possible in industry. And the department had some folks in that would come in and give a presentation and meet with the students. And I kind of liked the applied way of thinking, but I didn't really know where I was going to work. So then I zagged again and started a postdoc in chemical engineering, but that was really full on endothelial cell biology. And then I zagged again by going to what would be the equivalent of ASN today. In those days, it was called experimental biology. And through the interviewing dating game, I met this guy who we really hit it off, and he ended up being my boss here at Abbott, and the rest is history. So you can see in my characterization is I was kind of bumbling around, trying following what I was passionate about. First biology, then physiology, and then fortunately human nutrition. And then there were some chance events where I just met people that became very influential in my life. So the lesson is, you got to meet people and talk to people.
So to build off of that, to bridge the what do I do next if I don't know what I want to do? You know, a lot of us find ourselves, especially in the state of public health right now, very, very passionate about nutrition, about helping people through the power of food and nutrition care. But how do you catalyze trying something new when you're uncertain? Because it sounds to me like if you don't know what to do, you have to go out and try things. But what advice do you have in getting started and trying something new in the realm of nutrition, regardless of the discipline necessarily?
Great question, Adam. I again fall back on my children. So of the 7, and this is common in many families, the youngest kids don't know, they know no failure. They don't take no for an answer because they've had to scratch and claw, with all the older kids. My second youngest daughter, I think I would use as the epitome is my answer. That young lady knows no stranger. If an interaction with a person is awkward, she finds a way um to put that person at ease and talk to them. And she, because of that quality, she is so networked that she unabashedly uses that network to find opportunities for both her and her friends. So my advice would be build a network. Don't be bashful, don't be embarrassed, because there are a lot of people out there that want to help you. Build a network or have a friend that has a network, and have conversations with people to understand what is possible. Because I think a lot of times, myself at your stage, or you, a lot of times the limitation is just knowing what's possible. To find out what's possible, you need to talk to people.
I feel like you're plugging the nutrition career mentorship program now, Matt. I can absolutely relate on a personal level to building that network, and like you have all these kind of seemingly independent passions, and figuring out how to coalesce all of those pathways into a road forward is, it really requires getting out there and figuring out just exactly what's being done, you know. So thank you for that answer, especially.
Yeah, I would add, because I remember being on the end where I didn't have information. I felt like I didn't want to bother people by asking them questions, but I'll tell you guys, when people get further into their career, um, most people want to help younger folks to further the field. So they may not be able to help you, but they may be able to then listen to you and refer you to someone else. So don't think that your questions are a burden. They're not. For people like at my stage of my career, and even 10, 15 years ago, it's an honor to try and help, because you guys are the future of the field.
Thank you, Matt. Really and truly. So okay, you have more of a network. You have a better picture of the path forward, and for some of us, the path might be a lot less clear than others. But you have credentials. You have started your career. You have your network. What advice would you have for students and folks early in their career, especially, you know, part of your career is that graduate research, that building those higher, you know, advanced skills. What kind of advice do you have about finding your way in the early days of your career? Like how do you navigate all of the different ways that you could take your career?
Yeah, for me, I know it's easy for me to say because it's worked out for me. But if I think back to when I was making choices as an undergrad, a master's student, a PhD student, I truly did not know what was possible, but I knew what sounded interesting and really excited me. And I followed that. I just followed that trail. And you can see it led to zigs and zags. And I've had people interview me for jobs, and this is a true story, ask me what's the matter with that. They sit down and say, "What's the matter with you?" I was like, when you're doing an interview and someone asks, "What's the matter with you?" It's not a great question to get at first, but in that particular case, my response was, "Well, what do you mean?" And this person responded by saying, "But you haven't stayed in one field. You've been just going all over the place." And I did not get the job. So we can dispel that part of it. But my response was, and I still stand by this response, is that I find everything I've done incredibly interesting. And when you change fields like that, your depth of understanding of how nutrition works or how biology works becomes deeper and deeper and more informed, which means I feel that I'm better suited to solve problems because I've been in different fields and seen the commonalities. Well, that didn't get me the job, but I still believe that's true. And for me in particular, it was true because I was following what really excited me. For example, following physiology into a master's degree and ultimately to start physiology. It didn't get me where I planned, and that was a PhD in physiology, but it opened doors for me to get a PhD in the field that I've stayed in for the rest of my career and I love.
Thanks. Awesome. And then I'm gonna ask, I think, two more questions, in the sake of getting to, first, has anyone submitted questions to Matt? If not, I can continue with plant. Did someone?
Submit. Sorry.
If not,
Yeah.
okay, wonderful. Yeah, then we'll get to that very soon. I just wanted to make sure so we can figure out how we best spend our time, right? So then a question I don't have pre-planned, but now have for myself too. This kind of goes back to being potentially apprehensive in approaching people who are so much more senior level in your field. I mean, even in academia too, approaching the distinguished professors around you who do have some very, very valuable insight, but just to build more on like catalyzing that step to discovery. What would you tell, let's say, a new employee in your unit, your department at Abbott, who doesn't necessarily know how to do their job the best? What would you tell them to do? And they want to develop their skills and their ability there.
Yeah, I believe it or not, this conversation comes up a lot here. And my response is to first pretend you're a sponge. Don't hold your questions back. Industry is very meeting oriented. So many times, younger people who are trying to be a sponge don't want to ask their questions in a meeting where, people are being very focused. And my advice in that setting is fine. That's cool. I'm glad you're sensitive to the focus of the meeting. Write your questions down and I will help direct you to people who can answer them. And secondly, it becomes very important to have a mentor, if not more than one mentor. And actually here we have a very active mentor program, so that younger folks, in addition to being a sponge and learning the organization, can use these more experienced people as sounding boards to understand the organization and what these younger folks are seeing. Are they seeing things the right way? Are they interpreting things the right way? What are some other ways of interpreting the same observations? And those conversations have profound effects on how quickly someone can learn and come up to speed. I assume it would be similar in the academic world.
Yeah, I was definitely drawing parallels as you were responding to academia, which is, what most of us really are solely becoming experts in navigating. So the last question I have before we move on to a submitted question for you is, what has been the most pivotal and altering career decision that you've made?
Yeah. I wrote down 3. First was marrying my wonderful wife, Sandy. Second was deciding to take that nutrition class. Because if you think about what happened next, the guy who taught the class ended up being my PhD mentor because I loved the subject material, but I also loved the way he thought. And we just hit it off. And a third one where it felt awful at the time was in 2005. You probably noted when I was introducing myself, I left Abbott Nutrition for a whole variety of reasons. And we moved our family of, it was seven kids at that point. We had the 6-month-old, our youngest was 6 months old, to Kansas to join Hill's Pet Nutrition. And that was a pivotal moment for a variety of reasons. One was, even at that point in my career, I believed the grass was greener on the other side of the fence. And it turned out not to be true. In fact, I simply did not fit that organization, and that happens. However, it led me back to Abbott Nutrition, which was not something I had contemplated. And why did that happen? Well, because I had a mentor at Abbott Nutrition who had been promoted to lead all of R&D. And he wanted me to come back. And in fact, his viewpoint was, since you've been outside the organization, I see you as more valuable now than before you left. So that was also an pivotal decision that had both difficult and unintended consequences.
Thank you. I'm gonna pivot to the submitted question. Did you submit a question? What was your name?
Monica?
Monica has a question for you, Matt. But I also want to add, while I switch over here, it's so fun to learn about all of the different ways that you've poured yourself. We have lots of questions. Wonderful. That's fantastic. It's just really you're on, so you won't be able to see the questions, but I'll read them out to you, and Matt will answer them. Your Abbott profile says that your discovery science, that's your discovery science is your title, and you've like really poured yourself into discovering all of the ways that you can apply science as well, and in your career alongside, I'm sure, all of the biochemical nutrition discovery that you've
Yeah.
That's cool, man. Really cool. So I'll start from the beginning. And if you could, we have another 10, 15 minutes. I'm going to talk about the mentorship program really briefly at the end. So we can definitely dedicate like 15 good minutes to answering these questions. So Matt, if you could try and be a little more brief.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you see these questions?
Quick question, Adam. If
Yeah.
we can't, is there some way I can answer them in written form after the fact?
Yeah, we'll definitely accomplish that.
Okay.
Great,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. What drew me to nutrition? I think I alluded to it that I was looking for a way to do research that was less esoteric and more applied to people. And nutrition was that solution for me. And that still is what excites me to this day. That very same thing, making products, innovations for babies and elderly is still exciting to me. What would I say is the best way to connect with someone? Don't be shy. Approach them. If they don't want to talk to you, it will become very clear. But most people will want to help you, or at least point you in the right direction. So ask. Nothing will happen if you don't ask.
If I can just add something from my own experience, it's been like mind blowing how literally every single person that I have personally reached out to, be it on LinkedIn or through extension, just people's profiles that I see, and like, I'm interested in any tangential way about what you do. Every single person has made time for me. Met me at Interzone, Zoom meeting from across the country, down in San Francisco, the DC area. It's like people are really, really generous when it comes to such an altruistic, generally speaking, field like nutrition. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, what tips do you have in seeking out job shadowing, internship opportunities for someone who doesn't have a lot of experience in the field of nutrition? At Abbott, and I assume other companies also have formal programs that you can apply to. I don't know how they work financially, given that you're on the West Coast and you would be traveling. I don't know how that part works, but those opportunities are advertised on company job boards. So look for them. If you're close to a company, then the question is simply finding a way to contact someone at the company, because most people, as Adam already alluded to, will be generous with their time for a young, high potential person who's interested in their field. So again, it's about talking to people. Let's see, the next one I would probably answer after the fact because it's a good question, but I think that I'll spend too much time. That is, can you talk about your experience at Abbott, the work you've done and the work that dietitians do at the company? I would simply say we do have a lot of dietitians here in various different roles, but I can answer that in writing afterward.
Fabulous.
What are some aspects of nutrition dietetics career that are often not talked about? Yeah, Adam and I, or things people find surprising or unexpected about the field. Adam and I have talked about also having some dietetics mentors through this program, and I've approached a few people here with dietetics disease degrees who would be very excited by that opportunity. So in keeping with what Adam said about people donating their time. So I would let them answer those questions rather than me, since I'm not a dietitian.
Thank you.
Let's see. How can we use mentors to the fullest? I am a pre-med student as well. What type of mentor should I look for? Any unique advice? My observation is, it works best when you look for a mentor who kind of looks at the world the same way as you. The reason I say that is that they will understand where you're coming from and like the nature of your questions. How do you find such a person? You need to talk to people and feel the vibe. My second youngest daughter that I spoke about already was pre-med and took the time out on her own to find docs that were willing to let her shadow. And she shadowed a ton of docs. And that was very informative in her career choice. I would strongly recommend shadowing docs and physician's assistants. Let's see, if you were fresh out of your PhD again, are there any skills or experiences that you would lean on or learn to help make that transition in the industry? That is a fantastic question. In fact, Adam and I have talked about this a little bit, that the one thing that was true of me, true of my peers when I started in industry, true of the young people that are coming in the industry, is that I feel that we usually do not know enough about ourselves and how we work with people and how to deal with conflict resolution. So I would strongly recommend learning yourself through various courses that are available. Learn your Myers-Briggs, learn about how to deal with conflict in a safe way, because the people who do well in industry are good at those things. And for most of us, for PhDs, there's some painful learning involved at the beginning of your career.
It's the last
That was
question.
the last one, wonderful, okay. So, I mean, we have time for another question for sure that I at least have prepared. I think, yeah, because you and I talked about this, Matt, and I don't know why I pivoted the screen around so everybody can see you. But yeah, going off of those, I would say, like, let's say soft skills too, and then your own personal strengths, your own qualities. Can you describe to us some of the personal qualities that fit best into academia versus industry, or different parts of industry that you are uniquely familiar with?
Yeah, really good question. Okay, so you guys, even without working in the industry, probably have the sense that industry is, the jobs in industry, the science jobs in industry are highly varied. I'll give you two examples. So you can have a discovery scientist such as myself doing preclinical work, sometimes feasibility clinical in humans, trying to identify technologies that will be important for people, say 5 or 10 years out. That requires very strong scientific talent, but also a lot of conceptual skill. On the other hand, a lot of scientists go into the regulatory team, where that job is highly tactical. You are reading regulations carefully and interpreting the words used by the USDA or FDA, and then enforcing internal interpretations converted into rules that are applied then to clinical studies, ingredients, and the like. So those two personalities are very different, because on the regulatory end, you tend to see people who are highly organized, very detail oriented, very bound by rules and regulation. On the discovery end, so I'm talking about the two extremes, you'll see people like myself who are very conceptual. I think rules are important as and from the perspective that they keep people out of jail, but too many rules get in my way, because then they just slow me down and I can't innovate as quickly. I am not the most detailed person. My wife would just be rolling her eyes right now. I'm detail oriented if it's something that I really like, but otherwise, not so much. And that would be typical of the discovery kind of lone shark, disruptive thinker personality. And then you have groups in between. I want to give you the right perception. In industry, a very high percentage of the people are tactical in nature and organized in detail. That'll be 95% of the people in industry. And the discovery, conceptual, anti-rule people like myself are an extreme minority and a persecuted group. I say that with a smile. In academia, a huge difference is that even as a discovery scientist, your greatest idea will be owned by the company and owned by the huge village of people that it takes to launch. It's not really your idea. In academia, I see conceptual skills being a requirement. You need to be strong conceptually, it looks like. You need to be very driven. And the trade-off is that you're driven by future possibilities because you're oftentimes a ways away from seeing a product. But you will own that idea if you stick to that area of study and become the expert. You will be recognized by industry and academicians alike as the expert. If you think of Marette Traber at your place and vitamin E, she's the boss of vitamin E, and everybody knows that. In academia, it looks like you need to enjoy teaching at all levels. In industry, teaching is like advantageous, but not an everyday occurrence. Those are just some of the differences, but you know, whether it's here or in written form, I could answer many more questions that my answer causes or leads to.
Thank you. And then I have one more question, and then I'll do a little overview of the mentorship program for anybody who's interested. And we'll wrap up. One piece of blanketed general advice for students and anyone early in a career.
Yep, we've already talked about passion and energy. And if you know Dave Dallas, he's one of my poster child for that. Just his energy and excitement about his field. And the other one, which I feel really strongly about, is be yourself. That's why I think it's so important to know what makes you tick, know your strengths and weaknesses through training, through training like Myers-Briggs and other things. Be true to yourself and your core values. The world, both academia and industry, can take those things away from you. Stay true to those values. You will end up then being recognized as a leader.
It's a really wonderful way to end. Thank you. Really, really, really strong. Okay, so yeah, to wrap up, this is acts as the launch of our nutrition career mentorship program. It will start in fall of 2025. We'll be doing ongoing enrollment during the summer as we build our network of mentors. Very excited to include more people in dietetics, especially as there's been a lot of interest through the Qualtrics polls that we've sent out for dietitians specifically. Would love to get folks in public health more broadly and food systems as well. The mentorship will last through the year. It's not for credit at the moment. Especially because the dietetics program is so jam-packed with requirements, so there's not a lot of flexibility. And that in mind, we're doing a not-for-credit participation. It'll be HHS 002. That'll come up and be live come fall. And it's going to be designed specifically for nutrition students. We're partnering with our friends at Catalyst. Awesome, generous, just very, very, very well-intentioned folks who want to help us get this thing running. It'll be fall, winter, spring. So we'll basically ramp up to your graduation, your next step, whatever that is. The purpose is to bring a platform to everybody for networking, for that self-discovery, and then hopefully for figuring out exactly what your next step is, if it's not grad school, or if it is grad school, which direction will you take? And we're very excited to continue to host these Q&A events throughout the next year as well. There'll be one per term that are open to anybody, of course. So if you're interested in all of this, there is a QR code on the table. It's a very short Qualtrics survey. Just email your major so we can keep in touch and ultimately pair you with a mentor. It'll be either an individual pairing or we'll pair a couple students to a mentor. And again, to emphasize, very as a dietetic student who works half-time, very aware of time constraints, so it's not going to be extraordinarily burdensome. Think of it maybe as a 1-credit class, but an actual 1-credit class, not like the 1-credit anatomy and physiology lab, which is not 1 credit. So that is it. Do you guys have any questions at all pertaining to the mentorship program? Anything for Matt? Okay, well, thank you all for joining us, and I hope to become familiar with some of you. So yeah, and yeah, let me just, if everybody could just thank our friend Matt for joining us.
Thank you, Matt.
You're more than welcome. Thank you.
And then please get some food, if you would. So yeah, thank you guys.
Take care, everyone.
Yeah, I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, Adam.
Thank you so much, man. It was really great.
Bye-bye.